Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt, here in person. Dad, how are you doing?
Doing all right. We're here for another recording. I don't know which episode, but I'm still trying to figure out, is it a chapter in an epic fantasy adventure, or is it, the next episode of The Twilight Zone? You decide.
I think there's an overarching narrative, wouldn't you say? It's not quite an anthology like the Twilight Zone. Although it feels often like the same problems that we have in one episode of ours is a continuous to the next one. We are eternally tormented by special teams, and that seems to be an overarching. Right. Although I will say the special teams in this game, which we are about to talk about, which is the Packers' Week 6 win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-18. Dad, did you see this, by the way? So prior to this season, 27-18 had only been done one time before in the history of the NFL, and that was like the Packers back in like 2000. And now the Packers have won two more games, 27-18 this season, and so there are three of them, and all three involve the Packers.
I had not seen this. It is so something kind of it always shocks me how many scorigamis you get per year. It's like these things have to be running out.
I mean, that there are a lot of combinations of scores, I guess. But yeah, you're right. It does it's odd that we still get 7, 8 a year, it seems like. I'm not sure. But yeah, so the Packers won 27-18, which we're going to be talking all about in this episode here, talking about what went right, what went wrong. It seems like if you look online, a lot of people felt like more went wrong, but we'll see if we agree with that as we talk. At least we'll see if you agree with me on that. Before we get into any of that, though, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear, subscribe, whether that's, Apple, YouTube, Spotify. Leave a review, leave a comment, tell a friend, follow us on Blue Sky at Father Son Packer for updates on when new episodes are out, etc., etc. The usual spiel, just leave a comment, leave a review, etc., etc. Subscribe on all three, honestly, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple if you're really liking us. But that does it for the spiel. Let's hit a couple of news items. Not a whole lot going on. The big one is that they re-signed Brant Banks to the practice squad after he had been with, I forget which team sniped him from us for a week and then cut him. But he's, kind of made his way from the Packers practice squad to the active roster to cut to now back to the practice squad. And then they released edge Deslin Alexander from the practice squad to make room for him. And then kicker Mark McNamee, who had previously been with the team, he was on the practice squad international pathway program player. So I think they have a spot for that now as well. Now that I think about it, he was also released today. And then the other piece of news that was kind of not really football related, but Dr. Patrick McKenzie, who had been the team head physician for a very long time, is now being promoted to senior medical advisor, and they are bringing in Dr. Michael K. Ryan, hired as the team head physician. I'm a little surprised they're doing this in season. That's a little surprising to me, but it sounds like this was kind of planned and in the works for the past bit, based on some of the news put out there. Like this was a planned succession that they had in the books. But Dad, any thoughts on any of those news items?
I guess the thing that surprised me the most is that they released Mark McNamee, since they don't have anybody to fill that spot. It's not like they can put anybody back in there.
Maybe Hale's back available. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about how they're replacing him if they're going to. So I guess we'll just see. Apparently, they were not comfortable with him kicking in the last game.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So the Packers win 27-18, and we always start with the injury report, which I guess we'll start with what we were just teasing there, which is that prior to this game, Brandon McManus was warming up. I don't know if you saw this clip, but then he was warming up for the game. And prior to the game, the day before, they signed Lucas Haversick as a kind of emergency kicking option. And prior to the game, McManus was chatting with Gutekunst and LaFleur, and I think one of the trainers. They were talking because he's been dealing with this quad injury. And he tried warming up, and I guess it did not go, well, I guess is how you would say. And so Haversick was the kicker for this game. And so it's unclear how much time McManus is going to miss, because Matt LaFleur in his presser last week was like, yeah, no, this is he's going to miss some time. And then McManus was like, oh no, I'm going to play on Sunday. And then he did not end up playing on Sunday, but he did warm up. So at least he's able to, try to kick the ball. I don't know how it would have gone if he had to kick in game. So I guess we're going to see what that ends up being. But so Dad, any thoughts on that before we get to the rest of these these injury reports, because I think that's probably the big one in terms of looking forward to the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think I have to go back and find these quotes, but I think McManus is saying, yeah, I was kicking it from 50 out there, but they thought that I should, maybe not go. They watched it and looking at he said, well, I guess they're looking at the big picture for the whole season. So I guess we'll see how long he's actually out.
Yeah, that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Anthony Belton and Devontae Wyatt also did not play and were not active with their injuries. So those are ones to keep an eye on. Wyatt is still week to week. We don't really know what's going on with Belton much at all. So that's one that is kind of an unknown right now. And then there were a few different injuries in game. Lucas Van Ness unfortunately left on a cart with a foot injury after the sack that he had in this game. Apparently, he had an MRI on Monday, but LaFleur said that they avoided anything super serious, but it's unclear how long he's going to be out, which I think is good news, I would say. Beyond that, Dontavian Wicks left with an ankle injury in this game and did not return. Javon Bullard left the game for a concussion check, but LaFleur did say that he is not in the protocol, but instead has something closer to a stinger. And Bullard told LaFleur rather that he'd be fine. Obviously, that's good news because he had already had a concussion this season. So, 2 in a short succession would have been very bad for him. So that's some good news. And then Josh Jacobs was sick for this one, but he did play through it, which we'll talk about. He said he was throwing up before, during, and after the game, but it didn't affect his play very much. So that's some good news. And then Zach Tom said he was in a lot of pain during the game. But on Monday, LaFleur said he did not know of any setbacks suffered by Tom during the game. So I guess that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Obviously not ideal that your starting right tackle, who you just paid a bunch of money, is in constant pain during a game after 2 weeks off. Maybe he shouldn't have been playing. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll see how he handles this week of practice. Any thoughts on any of those injuries from the injury report, Dad?
Yeah, I think, what did Tom say? Something like, yeah, I kind of barely remember parts of the second half. I was in so much pain, or some quotes like that. It's like, that doesn't sound ideal. No. And he clearly could not move as well. I think he was getting a little late to some of his marks, I think, because of the pain he was in.
Well, if you watch the Elton Jenkins mic'd up, Elton jokes with him that he's moving like an old man, that he's he can't move out there. I don't know if you saw it. There was a part, I think it was in the kneel down. They had Tom at guard and Jordan Morgan at tackle or something like that. I don't know what was going on there. For the kneel down, they had switch spots. Who knows why? But anyway, so that does it for the injury report. Dad, I guess we'll go on to talking about our main stuff from this game, and let's start off with the gut check. So some behind the curtain here. We were actually at a wedding on Sunday for the second half of this game, so we actually had to go back and rewatch this on tape delay. Now, I was following the score and the play-by-play on the game cast up until the service started, and then so with about 4 minutes left, I think it was, I had to just put the phone away and just be like, goodness, I hope we close this out. I think
actually what you said was, you just gotta have faith.
Yeah, I was like, I just gotta put the phone away and just have faith that we're gonna close this out. I think it was 24-18 at that point. And I was like, man, I just offense, please go put this away. But anyway, so my main context about the game, or my main, way I initially, consumed the game, I guess I would say, is just via the play-by-play, and then what people were saying on the internet afterwards. I didn't get to rewatch the game until afterwards. I don't know about you, but my gut check watching the game from front to back, I didn't think we didn't play as badly as I thought the play-by-play and the score made it look, in terms of hey, we were 14.5-point favorites. It was a 6-point game at one point where it's a long third down and you need to convert that, or else they get the ball back and with a lot of momentum, and if they score a touchdown, they win. I felt like watching the game, we played better than the score would indicate. I don't know. What was your gut check for this game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel in some ways the 3 plays made this a little bit close instead of a blowout. And though I did sort of to sum up my gut check, was I just need to tell myself, get the win and move on.
Yeah, what was it? Ugly win is better than a pretty loss any day of the year. And so that's the big thing. Packers are 3-1-1. And despite going a month without winning a football game, because it was September 11th all the way to October 12th, I believe it was, from the win they had against the Commanders until this win, they're second in the NFC right now and first in the NFC North somehow at 3-1-1. which is kind of like remarkable, just given that they went a month without winning a football game, which is kind of like a funny quirk of like playing on a Thursday and then having your bye. But so, I mean, 3-1-1, leading the division. Obviously, it's a competitive division right now. Every single team is above 500. But it's, a good place to be through 6 weeks. But anyway, Dad, I guess we should get into the meat of our breakdown. And let's start with our big moments of the game. We each pick 3 of what we think were the big, crucial, critical, turning point type moments of the game, or just moments we found really cool. That's also, I guess, an option as well. And we'll go in chronological order. It looks like you have the first one. What was the first big moment of the game, in your opinion?
Yeah, so it's a big moment of the game. It was not a fun moment of the game. 8:51 left in the first quarter, and Love throws a pick to Geno Stone off a deflected ball when he scrambles away from pressure and throws a double coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Do you think it was double coverage? I feel like it was just like he shouldn't have thrown it, but I feel like 80% of the time it's an incompletion. But like, I mean, 0% of the time is it a completion is the issue. Like there was no chance that was, and I think he missed him inside too. Like, I think if you asked him, he was probably trying to put it like on the sideline and just missed it by like a yard or two left. But yeah, I mean, that was like, we were driving down the field, and then like, that was like, points off the board there, which really sucks.
Yeah. I mean, they were already at the 19, Cincinnati 19, and had moved the ball downfield effectively, and then they ended up coming up empty with the,
yeah,
with the
I mean,
essentially
takes 3 points off the board because it was 3rd and 5.
Yeah.
So it was like going to be 4th and 5. I doubt they go for it. But yeah, takes 3 points off the board in a game you end up winning by 9, but in a game that could have come down to being only up 6. So it definitely could have ended up being like the difference in the game. And only Love's, I guess, second pick of the year, 3rd turnover, right, with the fumble against Dallas.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallit? But yeah, I mean, not a great throw. Not a great decision.
It was mostly a bad decision because he was blanketed on that. It was bad luck on the deflection, like bounced off the arm and up in the air, stayed in bounds right to the
Geno Stone, the safety.
Was, kind of bracketing him deep. And it's just one that you just throw that away.
Yeah, and just take the 3 points, I guess. But yeah, that was definitely a big moment of the game. The next one that I had was positive moment. This was 3rd and 10 at the Green Bay 30 with 5:46 left in the second in a 3-0 game. So the Packers had a field goal lead at this point. And this was right after Love missed Musgrave on like a deep dig. And then Love just throws a beautiful over-the-shoulder 35-yard bomb to Matthew Golden on the left sideline. And that drive ends up going for a touchdown. And so like that's essentially the difference between 0 points and 7 points in a game. You win by 9, and that like and a game where they miss a field goal at the end, so could have even been the game winning score. But yeah, so that was like a massive play in the game, and we'll get to it later. But Golden was great in this game. I thought Love was quite good in this game outside of the like one missed throw to Musgrave and the pick, obviously. And besides that, I thought he was really good, and he was really good using his legs, which we'll talk about. But this was one of the better throws of the day from him, and ended up ending up in 7 points. And so that was a huge moment in this game when you're only up by 3 to eventually make it a 2-score game and then just kind of keep the pressure on from there.
Yeah, I agree that and Love looked mostly on point in this game, as well as converting on big situations as well with his legs. But so I feel like he had a good game. The offensive line kind of settled down as the game went on. The defense started good. But we could go on to some of those things. And we'll talk about how the defense has started good in a lot of games and maybe not finished the games quite as well. The next moment, though, was also one that I had. Actually, the next two are me, and then you have the last two of the game. The next one I had was Cincinnati's score, which was 4th and goal at the 2 for Cincinnati with 4:46 left in the third. And so at this point, they had been driving for like 10 minutes on 17 plays, which could not get off the field. And it ended up being a touchdown to Tanner Hudson and a penalty on Hobbs that would have made it a first down even if they hadn't gotten the touchdown, which is obviously less than ideal. But that made it 10-7. And so that was a huge turning point in the game, because if you were able to, withstand that drive and, essentially hold them scoreless there and get the ball back, I think that would have essentially ended the game. But the fact that it made it, a 3-point game was definitely a big swing in the game. And you could have really
really put your stamp on that game and really taken it over there if you had been able to get a stop. Unfortunately, they were not, and there's another fourth down later, which we'll talk about, where they also were not able to get a stop. But so a couple of fourth downs that ended up being the difference in this being a game where you win handily or a game where it kind of comes down to the wire a little bit. And then the next big moment was immediately following this was the whole Jacobs touchdown drive in that, third, fourth quarter. Specifically the touchdown run, which was 2nd and 7 at Cincy's 14 in a 10-7 ball game. And so you're coming off a drive where Cincinnati, like I said, a touchdown, 17 play, 10-minute, 14 drive to start the second half to really kind of take momentum and make it a 3-point game. And so you really needed to come out and score on that drive, because if you don't and you punt it back to them in a 3-point game and you essentially have had no time of possession since the first half, that would have been a really poor way to start the second half. And Jacobs and the offensive line as well did a really great job of doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that drive and putting points on the scoreboard where, you make it a 2-score game, you kind of keep, pedal to the metal, keep them on the back foot and regain the momentum there. And that play specifically was Jacobs was joking that he could have fallen down and still scored a touchdown on that drive because the blocking was so good. I mean, part of it is the Cincinnati linebackers played it really poorly. They just opened up the A gaps for Jacobs to just waltz through. But he did a really good job, moving through there. Morgan and Elton did a really good job getting their blocks on that play. And so that was a really big turning point in the game to me was, turning that 1-score lead back into a 2-score lead and regaining momentum coming out of halftime.
Yeah, I mean, I think that touchdown run is really, I think, the vision that they have for the run game and the kind of thing we see teams do all over the league. I feel like for years we have not seen that kind of touchdown run. We have when we're getting into the, into the red zone, or especially goal to go. This wasn't goal to go, but we got it all the way in on it, where we are just barely squeaking over the goal line. We barely score. This time we just powered it in.
It's pretty rare to open up lane that big. That does not happen even once a game for either team. I don't think that's the full, I can drive a truck through this hole.
Oh, you stole my line.
I mean, that's the classic. But anyway, what was your next two moments, I guess? What was the next one and then the one after that? Because you got the next two here.
Yeah. So I've got another negative one for the Packers here for my second to last one. And that's with 4:11 left in the fourth quarter and so Cincinnati's at 4th and 5 from the Green Bay 19. And Flacco hits Jamar Chase for a touchdown, despite being blanketed and potentially fouled by Keyshawn Nixon. And he catches it anyway to cut the Green Bay lead to just 1 score again. And so that was just a big play in terms of win percentage, momentum of the game. We could have just ended the game right there if we got the stop.
Yeah, I mean, Keyshawn has great coverage. It's just Jamar Chase is just really strong, absurdly strong for a receiver. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough because he's a crazy dynamic athlete, but his ability to just win those, what's the classic? It's not a 50-50 ball for him. That's a 70-30 ball for him. And he's getting probably interfered with, and Keyshawn is all over him. And he just one hand just rips it out of the air and just falls in the end zone. It's okay, well, it's if he's going to do that, I don't even know, you can't even be mad at the defense. That's just a freak play. And he had a couple plays like that in this game where it's just one-on-one outside the numbers. And it's just okay, he's just better. He's better than pretty much every corner in the league, but he's better than our corners, which no shade to our corners. Jamar Chase is really good. That's tough.
Yeah. The fact that, he had a big game is not really an indictment on our corners because he has a big games against everybody.
Yeah, I have more questions about the plan of playing. I felt like we played a lot more man coverage on third down specifically in this game. And I get that we wanted to send extra rushers to try and fluster Flacco, but I don't love the idea of leaving our corners on an island with Chase and Higgins because, it didn't go well in this game.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look to see, when whether they changed that system from what they're doing when that was working really well early in the game. And then, because first half they couldn't get anything going. They had three and not quite 3 outs, but
they didn't get their first down until was 3 minutes left in the second quarter, I don't think, or something like that.
Yeah, so they got completely shut down in the first half, and then opened up the second half with a 17-play drive.
Yeah, it just held the ball forever. I remember looking back and I was man, the second half went really quick. It's yeah, that's what happens when there's one drive, it just doesn't end. But anyway, what was your last moment for this game? This is your last big moment.
My last one was with 2:52 left, and in the fourth quarter, And on 3rd and 8, Love connects with Golden for 31 yards and a first down. So at this point, Green Bay is only up 6 and at their own 40. If this isn't complete, Cincy would have gotten the ball with a chance to take the lead at the end because they would have had to punt it away. There's no way LaFleur is going for it on 4th and 8 from his own 40.
No, and I wouldn't want to either in a 6-point game. Yeah, like I mean, I'm all for being aggressive, and if they wanted to try and do hey, get 6 yards here and then see, but I mean, I'd much rather just get it all at once. And I mean, Love just like rolls out left and just feathers the ball. I mean, and Golden runs a really nice route. He can see that the like kind of, I think it was the corner there had been dropping underneath him, and he just cuts it like back towards the quarterback, which you're taught to do when the quarterback's on a second reaction play. He gets like back underneath defender, to like drags his feet, make sure he's in bounds. And I mean, that's probably the biggest play of the game. You could argue that, I mean, besides some of the touchdowns, I suppose. But like, I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, giving the ball back there only up 6 just wouldn't have felt great. Would not have felt great.
Very tense.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so those are the biggest moments of the game. And I think, Golden really coming up there again. I mean, like we look back to the last time the Packers played, maybe we don't remember this, but that 4th down that the Packers had against the Cowboys, they went right to Golden, middle of the field. And so he's becoming a bit of a go-to guy in those scenarios. I think Dobbs is probably still the go-to guy in those scenarios, but Golden's showing that he's like up for those big moments. But Dad, I guess we'll move on to talking about big picture, interesting stats from this game, interesting takeaways from this game, maybe stuff that we can kind of project moving forward for this Packers team, what they need to do better, what they need to keep doing, what went well in this game that could maybe continue on. Do you want to start off with your first one that like stood out to you? Like, what was your big takeaway from this game?
So I went with something a little different here, where special teams actually held up okay, especially.
Well, let's shout out Haversick because he came in with like no real practice and perfect on kicks. I'm perfect on kicks. And like, I mean, none of the kicks were over 50 yards, I don't think, but still going, what was it? 5 for 5?
5 for 5, I think. Like,
I mean,
two field goals and 3 extra points, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's
that add up? I think that adds up.
But I mean, he had a great day. I mean, what you couldn't ask for any more from him. I mean, only been with the team like 24 hours, something like that. Yeah. I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah. And so he did his job when he had to. And the operation went smoothly. I also heard a story that he has worked out with Orzeck and Whelan.
Well, it's something about like him having played with Orzeck before at some level. I forget if it was like college or high school or something like that. And he works out with them and him and Whelan in the off season. Yeah. So like that's a great guy to bring in on short notice, is a guy who's like worked with your kicker and long snapper before.
Yeah. And so that's just
worked with your holder and long snapper, yeah. I should say.
And so that was like the kicking operation went well, which is always
never a given. We'll say never a given.
Don't
always
take
a plus.
Don't take it for granted. Yeah. But one thing I was specifically looking at was their kick returns. When they were receiving, they averaged 33 yards per kick return for the week. For the season, coming into the game, they were only averaging 25.8 yards per return. So 7 yards more. And their starting position after the kickoffs averaged the 35-yard line. Through week 4, so all of Green Bay's previous games, their starting average position after kickoffs was the 27. So, which was 29th in the league. So like 4th from the bottom.
And we fielded every kick. We did not let any of the kicks bounce, which is like another big plus. And I think Savion Williams, I mean, he doesn't have a lot of experience returning kicks, so it's probably, I mean, he's a rookie. It's still early in his career. He's probably getting used to it. And in this game, he had a number of nice returns.
Yeah, so he had 3 nice returns. And I almost said Belton. Bo Melton. Don't flip those letters. Yeah. Mo Belton.
Not Mo Belton.
Not Mo Belton. Bo Melton also had a good return. So basically all the returns were good. And they had no penalties on their returns.
Yeah, I thought the Tyron Hopper penalty was pretty weak on our kickoff that Hopper got like the late. They said he like pile drove him after I felt like he was already in the motion as the whistle was getting blown, but whatever. But yeah, for the most part, pretty clean. What do you think about Romeo Doubs returning punts? Any thoughts on that?
I think for most of the season when he's had the job, he's done okay. We still had another time, so I guess want to give one ding against the special teams was Golden's fair catch with like 15 yards of open field in front of him, almost maybe 10. I'll be generous.
Yeah.
So it might be 10. He could have gotten, I think, 10 yards.
I will say I like that better than the inverse of fielding it when a guy is screaming down on you. So like if that's the like way you got to take, you got to take. And then Dobbs also had one where like he caught it and like he was like kind of pacing, trying to like figure out which way he wanted to go, but you just got to get upfield.
Yeah, he spent so much time there deciding which direction to go. I was like, did he think he called a fair catch? Because he's just like standing in one spot trying to decide whether he wants to go right or left or straight up field.
Yeah, but I think Haversick, like, I mean, honestly, we could have him as the player of the game, and I would not argue with you. I mean, he ended up, he made every single one of his kicks. I will say the last kick when it was like, okay, it's a 6-point game, you got to make this kick to make it 9 and like really essentially end this game. I was sweating a little bit. I was like, okay, like that's it's not a given. We've missed that kick before. That's all I'm going to say. We've had plenty of kickers. Before. We've had plenty of kickers miss. Like we've had, there are no gimme kicks for the Packers. Like it could be a 28-yarder, and I'd still be like, okay, let's just everyone just hold their breaths. Everyone just send out good vibes into the universe, and he made it. And so like I think, and that's like a testament to Bisaccia, like, and that group getting prepped. I know I'm harsh on Bisaccia on this podcast, but shout out to him. Their unit did really well in this game. Return game was good. Coverage was quite good. No real like big coverage busts on like punts or kicks. And really just a clean operation, a couple penalties, but that's going to happen. And so it's like as if the big downside is like, hey, you get a couple penalties on a couple like returns or kickoffs. We'll live with that. And if you're making all your kicks and you're not screwing up protections and stuff like that, that's a plus for sure.
Yeah. So for the most part, it was good. Yeah. And in terms of like penalties per special teams play, I think it's like way better this game was way better than league average.
Yeah. It was like 2 on a dozen or so special teams plays. You'll live with that. That's kind of how special teams goes. Like there are penalties on special teams because these are, someone was saying it's like linebackers trying to block. Like it's like they're doing things that they don't usually have to do. So it's like their technique is not perfect, and special teams doesn't get repped that much in practice. So it's like tough.
Yeah. And also something that gets pointed out once in a while is they're put in positions where they almost can't help but make a penalty because they're blocking the player in one direction and the returner behind them cuts the other way. And all of a sudden they're on the wrong side, on the wrong side of the player. And they're, now it's a hold.
Yeah. But yeah, so good from the special teams in this one. Shout out Bisaccia's unit. My first big takeaway was Jordan Love. We already talked about how we thought he played pretty well in this game. Not amazing, but pretty well. I wanted to shout out the scrambling and creation with his legs that he had in this game, though, because that was like a big thing. Talking about in the offseason, we wanted to see him use his legs more because we thought there was more meat on the bone there, and he was injured last year, so that was like partially in like explanation of that. But we wanted to see more of it because even the year before, he hadn't done a lot of it, and it's a club that's in his bag. I don't think he's an elite scrambler. He's a bit too like long and lanky to like really get up to speed quickly. But like you need to be able to do that in order to like really be I would say elite offense, because like it's just such a great weapon to have. Like scrambling, Ben Solak wrote an article a long time ago about how like EPA generated from scrambles is like the equivalent to like some of the best drop back EPA in the league, like if you're just scrambling. But in this game, Love had 5 scrambles, which according to PFF is a career high for him. So the most he's ever had in a game. He gained 24 yards, and it resulted in 2 first downs, and then he also forced 2 missed tackles. So he had a really good 7-yard scramble on 3rd and 7 on the first drive. He also had 7 yards on a 1st and 10, 3 yards on a 3rd and 1 where he made like 2 guys miss and managed to like cut it back inside and get the first down, and then 5 yards on a 2nd and 7 near the end of the game. That was one where he slid a little early, and it's like, okay, like protect yourself totally. He might have been able to get it, but it's a regular season game, tough to really say. But so 4 of those 5 scrambles were successful plays. Like 2 of them got first downs, but 4 of 5 were successful, where they, a successful play is defined as like 40% of the yards to go on first down, 60% of the yards to go on second down, and then 100% of the yards to go on 3rd or 4th down. But so 4 or 5 successful, and per NFL Pro, he actually led all qualified rushers, which as far as I can tell is 7 carries or more on the week, in EPA per attempt. And that's not just quarterbacks, like all ball carriers. And so it's really nice to see him using his legs a little bit, being a threat there. I think that'll help them as well when like, last year they had so much trouble against man coverage. Scrambling can be a really good threat against man coverage as like players are forced to turn their back to the quarterback and follow the receivers downfield. That's a really good counter to that. And so that should be something that helps the Packers offense both long-term and in this game. And so it's definitely something I wanted to highlight from this game.
Yeah, I remember watching when we were still watching the game live. how excited I was for that first scramble where he got a first down when it was, third and long, just to keep that drive going.
Yeah, and unfortunately that was the drive that ended in a pick, but like it was really good to see it. It was good to see him using his legs and moving around and making guys miss too. Like he forced a few different missed tackles on those scrambles, which was really good to see. But Dad, what was your next big takeaway?
So for me, it was just overall the efficiency of the offense, where they had 9.5 yards per pass. Their average before this week was only 8.3. So this average this week would tie Seattle for the league lead. They also had 6.8 yards per play. Coming into this game, they were averaging 5.6. 6.8 would lead the league by half a yard. They had their best EPA per rush on the season at 0.15 for sixth best on the week entering Monday night.
I mean, and part of it's you're playing Cincinnati's defense, but like also like we're moving the ball quite well in this game.
Yeah, and so both the run game and the passing game were working. We were getting a lot of a high success rate on runs, high success rate on the pass. This is another one where I think felt like the run game looked really good, kind of similar to the second half of the Dallas game.
Yeah, and I mean, the question is like, so Dallas is 26th and Cincinnati's 27th in EPA per carry, and then Dallas is 32nd and Cincinnati is 24th in rushing success rate allowed. So how much of it is the opponent and how much of it is getting some offensive line pieces back and being able to run the ball a little bit more? Because I have some numbers here from the running game if you wanted to hear it. I mean,
yeah.
Jacobs was really good in this game. Like he did a lot of heavy lifting, 18 carries for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 5.2 a carry. He forced 5 missed tackles on those 18 carries, which is like pretty outrageous. Like a third of your carries, you're forcing a missed tackle. That's the most he's forced in a game this year, despite being the second fewest number of carries he's had on the year. And I mean, just some great stiff arms. There was a couple where he's just bullying guys. 44.4% of his carries were successful. That was 15th best on the week. He had 4 carries of 10 plus yards, which was second most on the week. A lot of explosive carries. 11th on the week in EPA per attempt. And he also added on 5 catches on 5 targets for an additional 57 yards. So he ended up with about 150 yards on the day. And the run game just looked a lot better. I wanted to see what you thought, because like kind of just talking about the run game, the offensive line kind of comes into that. And Jordan Morgan in this game, I thought it was interesting. So they were doing the Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan rotation at right guard. And so it was, they would, kind of trade off series. But at the end of the game, Jordan Morgan ended up with 49 snaps and Sean Ryan only ended up with 12. And Morgan played quite well. He allowed 1 pressure and was the second highest graded run blocker amongst the offensive line for PFF, which like, PFF grades aren't the end all be all, but they're, indicative of good play usually. Only Tom was graded ahead of him in run blocking. But I guess I wanted to see what you thought about, obviously, Jacobs' performance. Like, I don't know if there's much to say other than he was really good. But do you have any thoughts on Morgan kind of maybe taking that job from taking that job from Ryan, rather, at that right guard spot?
Well, it certainly looks that way. So they started off, I think, Morgan started the game in the first possession. And then I think Ryan played the second possession. And after that possession, Ryan played maybe just a handful of snaps here and there. And Morgan just dominated the rest of the game. So it really looks like Morgan is in the process of taking this job now, and will be his if it continues this way.
Yeah, and I mean, he had that really great block on Jacobs' second touchdown run that ended up being, that big long gain. He had a couple other nice blocks throughout the game. He had a very solid day at that right guard spot, and I'm still not sure if his best position is guard, but he's at least showing that he can hang at that spot, albeit against, maybe questionable competition. We'll see if he can do it against maybe some more, impactful like interior defensive line like pass rushers, but it's at least a step in the right direction. But Dad, speaking of offensive line, it looks like that was the next one that you had on your list was also offensive line related, so I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, so Jenkins really seems to be rounding into form, especially in pass pro anyway. He led the team in PFF pass blocking grade at 85.4 and gave up no pressures. This is the second game in a row for him, so weeks 4 and 6, where he led all centers in the league in pass blocking grade, and he hasn't given up a pressure in either of those games. However, PFF still doesn't like his run blocking so much. He had a kind of a middle-of-the-road 61.2 grade, and it was put him 5th amongst Green Bay's 6 offensive linemen who played. He was only better than Aaron Banks in run blocking grade. So, but it's nice to see that, and Jenkins, even by his own statements, felt like he hadn't been playing very well in the first couple of weeks. And we're counting on him to be, one of our top 2 linemen. And he seems to be playing better and better and settling into the center position as the season goes on. And that's kind of huge for the unit as a whole.
Yeah. And, after he really struggled, especially in that Browns game, but wasn't great week 1 or 2 either. And he even said in his locker room availability, in other words, that he wasn't playing very well. But so it's good to see him bounce back. Again, Dallas and Cincinnati aren't the strongest interior defensive lines. So we'll see how it goes against, more impactful defensive lines, but good to see him, bouncing back from that slow start. The next thing I had was a couple of things on defense with my last ones. The first is, we already kind of hinted at it earlier, was second half defense. And these numbers are all from Andy Herman, at Andy Herman NFL on Twitter. And it was talking about how the Packers have really struggled in the second half on defense in these games. So through 5 games, the Packers have allowed 20 points in the first halves of games. So like 4 points in the first half per game and 80 points in the second halves. And this was directly from Andy Herman's quote, since the Browns field goal in the fourth quarter of week 3, opposing teams in the second half have gone field goal, punt, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, missed field goal. So one stop out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 drives. Not good. Not great.
Yeah, because there's the punt, you call it stop, and then that last missed field goal, you can barely call that a stop at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not really a stop. Like, if you let him get into field goal range, I would not say that's a stop. Are you concerned at all about the second half defense?
I am, and I don't quite understand why they're so good in the first half and so ineffective in the second half. Are they getting figured out? Are they getting tired? Are they changing their alignment? But one thing that does seem to be happening in the last couple of games is opponents running the short pass.
Quick game is tough.
Time to throw is really short for our last couple opponents.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about this. I don't love lining Micah up over the center. I feel like it's not been successful. I think he's been way more impactful when he's just allowed to pass rush from the edge. I feel like when he, I feel like it's way easier to double team him when he's rushing along the interior and have the center and the guard, and I get that it's allowed to free up some stuff from other people and, stuff like that. But I would rather just see him rush from the edge. And I think that would set him up for more success, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like seeing him use his speed off the edge where he's just too fast for the tackles.
Yeah, he's a dominant edge rusher. Let him be a dominant edge rusher. And that's, I'm not saying that's the reason the defense is not good in the second half. It's just something that an opinion I wanted to throw out there. But yeah, second half defense has not been good enough. I don't know what it is in terms of is the other team seeing something, or are they not able to game stuff up as much in the second half? I'm not sure. It really does feel like specifically the drives coming out of halftime have been very, successful for the other team, which is maybe something I'm not sure what the fix is there, but it's just something I wanted to point out because, what was it? Almost every single drive has resulted in points for the opposing team in the past few weeks, whenever it's the second half.
Yeah, so maybe we need to just start receiving the ball in the second half every time.
Yeah, just don't let them have the ball. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was the shuffle along the interior defensive line, because I was interested to see what would happen along the D-line with Wyatt out. He's going to be week to week. He's probably going to miss a couple more games. But Stackhouse played just 5 snaps in this game. And Warren Brinson, in his first game action, played 21 and actually graded out as the Packers' best defender per PFF, which, again, PFF grades, do with them as you will. It's not an exact science, but it's still indicative of good play. He had 2 pressures and just 19 pass rush opportunities. And then also Carl Brooks went from 40 snaps to 53, and Colby Wooden went from 46 to 32. So kind of a flip there. And some of that is game script dependent, but still a bit interesting. And then no uptick in defensive tackle snaps for LVN prior to injury. That was something we maybe thought they might do a little bit more of, is have him play some D tackle, but they didn't in this game. But so, Dad, any thoughts on Brinson getting more snaps than Stackhouse, despite Stackhouse being active in the early weeks? And any thoughts on the Brooks Wooden swap? I think that's maybe a little bit just more about how the game was going. The Packers had the lead in this one, and the game against the Cowboys was a little bit more back and forth. But any thoughts on Brinson, I guess, specifically?
Yeah, so I like Brinson. I have to go back and watch to see exactly what earned him that grade. But I think he's potentially going to add some good depth. He plays a different role than Stackhouse. And maybe, that snap balance is kind of similar to Brooks versus Wooden, where they're running a lot of pass plays and they can't run the ball. Mm-hmm. They just have been very ineffective in the run. And so they're forced to pass, and so you want your pass rushers in there. And so Brooks is more of a pass rusher than Wooden. Brinson apparently is much more of a pass rusher than Stackhouse.
Yeah, Stackhouse just has no juice in the passing game, unfortunately. And like for a player like that to really be impactful, they need to be like a very good run defender, and I wouldn't say he's that right now, at least.
No, and Brinson, at least stylistically, is more of
he's more versatile,
and also more like Wyatt in terms of what he brings to the table, just not as much.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just something to kind of keep an eye on moving forward, because I think we're going to be without Wyatt for a little bit. But Dad, I guess we'll move on to our final bit. Player of the game, who'd you have?
Yeah, so I got my pick in first. So I went for the low-hanging fruit, and Josh Jacobs, 150 yards from scrimmage, 93 yards rushing, 5.2 per carry, 57 on 5 receptions, had 2 touchdowns. He was third on the week in the league in yards after contact per attempt with 3.72, and third on the week with 7 first downs.
Yeah, and he was sick and throwing up before, during, and after the game, so extra credit for that as well.
Right, people would call it his Michael Jordan game,
flu game. But yeah, so that's definitely a great call. I went with Matthew Golden. It was his first 100-yard game. Total yards, not just receiving. He had, I think it was like
86 and 16.
86 and 16. Thank you. And he just a couple of huge completions, not just like in terms of like bombs down the field, but also just key pivotal moments in the game that like the Packers really needed a big play, and he, answered the call. So I thought he was great in this game. And Dad, under the radar player, maybe a player that you wanted to highlight that maybe didn't, jump off the box score, but had a good game.
Yeah. So I went with Javon Bullard. So, he led the team in run defense grade from PFF with 81.6, and he had 7 total tackles with no missed tackles, led the team in tackling grade, and only gave up 18 yards and 25 coverage snaps.
Yeah, and 7 total tackles, in like not a full game's worth of snaps, because he was forced to leave the game with that stinger. So like probably would have led the team in tackles, like if he had been in the game the whole time. But yeah, he had a nice game, a couple nice tackles, on some. He is really good at blowing up screens. He is dynamic at blowing up screens.
Yeah, so they're like first play of the game when they tried to run to the right side, and like Bullard and
any kind of stretch play to the right too is
shut that down.
They need to. Other teams might just stop running that stuff towards him, because that's what he's really good at, is coming downhill and hitting those. My under the radar player was Jordan Morgan. Just looked like a solid, good starting right guard in this game, which I was questionable if he would be. Like, I thought he might just be a left tackle only at this point. And so it's nice to see him, have a nice game and maybe show a little more versatility than he had up until this point. But so that was my under the radar player. But Dad, any final thoughts you wanted to throw out there before we call this a day and put this game in the rear view and move on to the next one?
It's nice to be in first place in the division, second in the conference, and we feel like we have not been playing our best ball yet.
Yeah. Because if this team, because like that's the thing, a lot of people are upset about the Packers not winning this game convincingly. And we had talked about coming into this game as like, you need to win this game convincingly, and they didn't. And so I think it would be, be kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Dishonest of me to now say like, oh no, it's fine, everything's fine. I would have liked us to win this game more convincingly. I do think that this game showed some flaws in the team right now in terms of like second half defense. The third down stuff also in the beginning of the game, we struggled on third down a little bit as well. There's still problems. This is not a well-oiled machine right now. If the team played a playoff game right now or had to go on a playoff run right now, if the playoffs started next week, we would be in trouble. And it would have been nice coming off of, loss to Cleveland, tie against Dallas, bye, to come out and really make a statement. But at the end of the day, you still won by 2 scores. You still got the win. And there's a lot of season left. Is something I also have to remind myself of a lot of the time. There is a lot of season left. And like we're what, a third of the way through? Like, it's not, the teams that are playing great now aren't necessarily going to be the ones that are playing great at the end of the season, like this year. Like last year, the Packers we kind of faded down the stretch. And the year before that, we really, hit our stride down the stretch in 2023. Like I remember, what was it, the game against the Broncos in 2023? Like, we looked awful. We looked terrible in that game. In a couple of games, like the game against the Raiders, we were really bad, and the game against the Vikings, we were not good either. Remember that game? We couldn't move the ball at all in 2023. And then we kind of hit our stride in that like the Chargers Steelers like stretch of the schedule, and then going down the stretch we were playing our best football, that's what's going to end up being most important, is who is playing their best football in December and January and hopefully February. And obviously you'd like to be playing your best ball the whole time. I would have liked us to gone out and like blow out the Bengals, but if we're playing our best football in December, I won't really care how we're playing football right now, I guess is kind of where I stand. But anyway, that's going to do it for us for this episode. This has been our breakdown of the Packers' Week 6 win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 27-18. Packers are 3-1-1, first in the NFC North. You love to see it. But anyway, if you like what you heard here today, subscribe, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We'll be doing our preview of the Packers' Week 7 matchup against the Arizona Cardinals later this week. Tell a friend, tell a stranger, like I said before. Follow us on Blue Sky at FatherSonPacker for updates on when new episodes are out. But until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.